one speaker has said, oil has moved away from us. Since we decided we're going to, every problem you say we are diversifying the Nigerian economy. Now, since we decided not to diversify, oil decided to move away from us. But I'll be saying a lot of things about data, and I'll look well about data, about what we can do differently about data as a country. You know, we love a lot of guesswork in Nigeria. You know, we do a whole lot of guesswork. And the question we always ask ourselves is, why do we always do guesswork? Why do we always do things about facts?
For actionable intelligence. Meaning we have facts, we have things that we have empirical in our hands, and we can think through that and be able to derive intelligence from that thinking. Derive intelligence. Derive intelligence from that. Can you hear me? And have been able to derive intelligence from Nigerian data. You know, think about every economy that we have studied. Every economy moves from an extractive stage, an agricultural stage, to a manufacturing stage, then to a services stage. But you know what Nigeria did? We jumped from an agricultural and extractive stage, then we moved to where? The services stage. So we have, if you look at the data, we have manufacturing doing 8% of our GDP. Then we have a workforce of almost 78 million people. Where do we put them? So we're going to look at, and I'm going to ask questions. Let me just share some of my stories with you, because when you talk a lot about data, it's good you talk about stories. I'm a 12-day-old daddy. So you understand that I'm just getting, you have to clap for me. It's not easy to be a daddy. Yeah, and you know, I have sleepless nights. Yep. Okay, good, thank you.
I have sleepless nights, days, and when we had the daughter, my wife stays around Nigeria and in US, so she's in Texas now, and immediately we had a child. They gave us the birth certificate. I was watching them because a lot of things thrilled me. You know, we had almost 12 medical personnel on ground to take delivery of a child. I was like, are we throwing a party here? You know. And after that, something stunned me again. They brought the birth certificate and says, we're going to use this to process a social security number. I said, what does that mean? He said, that's your unique identity of your child for life. And that struck me because 2 days ago, before they asked a friend of mine that budgets, my organization's co-founders, our partners, they're all abroad, they're all in Washington, D.C. or New York, and maybe we should even register our organization in the US. And it says, okay, you cannot register your organization in the US if you don't have a social security number. That means there's a number that locks you out of the system if you are not a citizen. Now, is there a number like that in Nigeria? And you allow me run a survey here. You allow me run a survey here so that we can know if there's any number like that that locks you out. How many of us have BVN here? You should raise your hand, please. Yeah, thank you. How many of us have passport here? We have an identity with the national passport. Have you? Good. How many of us have driver's license? Wow. How many of us have a national ID card? How many of us have NMIC? That's the new one they're making now. Oh my God. You know, we can keep counting. How many of us are ever taking part in the census program? Okay, great. You can see how we have created multiple data sets as a country. Every country, no country progresses if it does not keep a single data set on its people. You need to have a single data set, a single identity to a person. Look at me now, I might be Sheon Onigbinde in BVN. In fact, it's happening. My UBA, they called me Oluwa Sheon Onigbinde. Maybe they were zealous. Then someone calls me Olu Sheon Onigbinde. Then another person decides to say it's Sheon Onigbinde. Different things. We don't have a single identity system. And that's when we don't have that, we can't build intelligence. There's so much gray areas in this country. We have a tax to GDP of 8%, worse than Afghanistan, worse than Syria.
So how do you collect tax if you don't have a profile of your citizens? How do you collect tax? How do you know how many of you are here? What skills do they have? When they leave the university, what do they do? Did they get a job? How do we know that everybody in this country actually needs to connect power to the grid? How do we know the kind of income status of everybody? How do we distribute that? That's why I say we do a lot of guesswork in this country, and it's not based on empirical facts, which is data. And it's just because we are not discerning enough. Every country that you see globally is not just a tech company, it's not just a marketing company, it's not just a business, it is a data company. You know, people say if it is too free, then you are the product. Yeah, Facebook, YouTube, Linda Ikeji, you are the product. Every time you're browsing on Google, there's an history to you. So it's monitoring your digital footprint. It's collecting data, understanding your interests. So if you are professing Christ and you're going to porn sites, people know. Yeah, we do know. There is a footprint for everything. And everybody is collecting data because of one word: intelligence. People are capturing data so that they can sell to you. Facebook knows your friends, it knows your interests, they know who you want to talk to, they know the kind of things that interest you. Like, we know what is interesting people now. 45 minutes video, I came down from the flight 1 a.m. this morning and I said, how can people watch 45 minutes video? And someone says, how did you read 1,800 pages of the budget? Since you say Tiwa Savage, we cannot watch 45 minutes video. Data is powerful. And a lot of people understand that when you collect that data, you analyze it, you machine it, you research it, you reuse it, and you build something great out of it. But we don't have a data culture in this country. I'm one of the biggest fans. I've always asked people that if the 5,000 naira thing comes out, I have to collect. Because they have not properly defined to me what it means to be poor and to be very vulnerable. Yes, I could also be poor in some sense. The reality is that we have not captured enough. We don't have that profile. And I always tell people about people that if I take my organization as a small case study, I was in First Bank. Mrs. Awoshika is too big. She might not know me then. I was First Bank for 4 years before I resigned. I was in strategy department. If I say I wanted to start my organization, and on basis of budget data was available to the public, and we can make that simple and interesting to people, then just look at that small angle. And I'm going to explain that. I'm going to expand that in context. Because I don't just want you to hear lots of stuff. I want you to also go back and think, what's the dead capital that you can resurrect in Nigeria? Budget was just there. It was always on the budget office website. But we decided to make it interesting. And now, not to boast, we have like 24 staff. We have a lot of donors and partners. In fact, we have a business arm now that we also pay tax. Because when you design budget and it looks fancy, businesses come to me, you say, we also love your infographics. Can you do it for us? I say, well, we're going to charge you. I say, yes. And we saw that it was working. And we are testing that. And now think about if we do that for education, health, politics, our election data, contract data. If we do that even for crime, how much? Because the fundamental of a democracy, as Pastor Koju laid this down, is they're supposed to engender freedom of thought, freedom of creativity. That's why we call it democracy. And that's why we need to do all of that. We are not driving enough in data, and so we don't allow people to be creative. I was talking to my team. Imagine we all know all the WAEC or GC or the NECO results of each school in this country over the last 20 years. Then we can build an advisory firm to advise teachers and advise parents, say this is where your child should go. Imagine we know all the records of doctors in this country is public.
all the mortality of each hospital in this country is public, then we know